Everything you think you know about 90 Day Fiancé is a lie, but specifically, everything you think you know about Jenny Slatten is a carefully constructed fabrication designed to manipulate your emotions. For years, we have watched Jenny portrayed as the naive, love-struck grandmother from Palm Springs, a woman who supposedly gave up everything, her home, her family, her financial security, all for a catfish who lied to her about his age, his parents, and his marital status. We look at her with pity. We wonder how anyone could be that blind. But industry insiders are starting to whisper a different story, a story that changes the entire history of the franchise. What if Jenny isn't the victim? What if she isn't even a standard cast member? The theory we are investigating today suggests that Jenny Slatten is actually a covert producer, a handler sent in by the network to orchestrate the drama from the inside, holding Sumit hostage not with love, but with an ironclad employment contract. This is the handler theory, and once you see the evidence, you will never watch this show the same way again. Before we expose the documents and the timeline that the network doesn't want you to see, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are digging into the secrets that reality TV tries to bury, and you do not want to miss our next investigation into the production secrets of The Other Way. Click that bell icon right now so you are notified the second we drop the next bombshell. Let's look at the facts with fresh eyes. The first pillar of the handler theory rests on something that has baffled fans for seasons: Jenny's unshakable, almost superhuman patience. Think about the human psychology of betrayal. When the average person flies across the world to meet a soulmate only to find out they were lied to about literally everything, the reaction is explosive. We have seen it on this show a dozen times. We see tables flipped, drinks thrown, rings tossed into the ocean. But not with Jenny. When she found out Sumit was actually married, that he was hiding a wife while sleeping next to her, her reaction was bizarrely contained. She cried, yes, but she didn't leave. She didn't burn the bridge. She stayed. Why does a woman with supposedly zero options and limited funds stay in a situation that is actively hostile? The narrative they feed us is that she is desperate and blinded by love. But our analysis suggests a different motivation. She stays because it is her job to stay. If you look at Jenny not as a participant, but as a shaky cam era producer embedded in the scene, her behavior makes perfect sense. She isn't tolerating Sumit's lies because she has low self-esteem. She is tolerating them because they are plot points she helped write. Notice how she navigates the chaos. She endures the catfishing, the secret marriages, the brutal verbal abuse from Sumit's in-laws, and the often unsanitary living conditions without ever truly breaking character. No normal person stays through that level of degradation unless there is a paycheck attached to their presence that is significantly higher than the standard cast stipend. We are talking about the difference between a cast member's fee and a producer's salary. Standard cast members on these spin-offs are rumored to make a meager amount per episode. It is barely enough to cover the flights. Yet, Jenny has remained in this cycle for years. If she were truly broke, truly destitute, she would have been forced to return to America and stay on her daughter's couch permanently. The math simply doesn't add up for a retiree with no savings, unless, of course, the financial ruin was just the backstory created to justify her move to India. This brings us to the Palm Springs void. The show made a massive spectacle of Jenny selling her furniture, emptying her apartment, and claiming she had cashed out her meager 401k to survive. It painted a picture of a woman on the edge of poverty. But let's look closer at that timeline. Recent reports and deep dives into public records suggest that the financial desperation might be a smokescreen. There are theories circulating among investigative communities that Jenny's assets weren't just sold off for cash, they were liquidated to shift funds into a protected status. We need to talk about the concept of the LLC. In the entertainment industry, it is common practice for producers and high-level talent to operate through limited liability companies to protect assets and manage tax liabilities. While the network portrays Jenny as a woman who can barely afford a plane ticket, dig a little deeper into the whisper network of Palm Springs real estate and business filings. There is a compelling argument to be made that Jenny is the beneficiary of a media consulting firm, an entity that allows her to receive direct payments from production that are classified differently than cast wages. If this is true, it explains why she never seems truly worried about money in a real-world sense. We see her worry about money on camera, but have we ever actually seen her go without? She always manages to secure housing. She always manages to handle the visa costs, which are astronomical. She travels back and forth to the US more often than the show initially lets on. Where is that capital coming from? The broken grandmother narrative is the perfect cover. It lowers our guard. We don't suspect the sweet old lady of running a long-con production scheme. We pity her, and while we are pitying her, she is clocking in, hitting her marks, and ensuring that Sumit hits him. Consider the layout of their scenes. In almost every major argument, watch Jenny's positioning. She is rarely on the defensive. She is usually the one steering the conversation back to the conflict. When things calm down, Jenny is the one who brings up the parents again. When Sumit seems content to just exist, Jenny is the one who pushes for the marriage conversation, escalating the tension exactly when the episode needs a climax. This isn't the nagging of a girlfriend. This is the pacing of a showrunner. She knows exactly how many minutes of footage they need to fill the segment. She knows that peace is boring, so she agitates, she pokes, she reminds Sumit of the stakes. There is a specific scene that diehard analysts often point to. It's the moment the parents come to the house, the infamous confrontation. Watch Jenny's eyes. She isn't looking at Sumit for protection. She is scanning the room. She is looking at the camera placement. She is positioning herself in the light. When the screaming starts, she doesn't retreat. She plants herself firmly in the frame, ensuring the camera captures her reaction perfectly. A terrified woman hides. A producer stands her ground to ensure the shot is focused. Furthermore, let's re-examine her life in America before the move. The show glossed over her professional history, painting her broadly as a resort employee. But Palm Springs is a hub for entertainment connections. It is a playground for Hollywood retirees and industry veterans. Is it so hard to believe that Jenny, living in that ecosystem, had connections to casting directors or development executives? The theory posits that the network was looking for a specific archetype, the older American woman dating a younger Indian man, a dynamic that rates incredibly well. They found Sumit, or perhaps Sumit found them, but they needed an American counterpart who could handle the grueling schedule and the cultural intensity without quitting mid-season. They didn't need a loose cannon, they needed a professional. So they approached Jenny, not as a participant, but as a partner. The pitch? We will pay you a producer's salary, we will cover all expenses, and we will set you up with a nest egg for retirement. All you have to do is play the part of the desperate grandmother for 5 years. It is the role of a lifetime. She gets to travel, she gets fame, and she gets a paycheck that dwarfs her resort wages. The only catch is that she has to be humiliated on international television. For the right price, many people would take that deal. And Jenny, with her calm demeanor and ability to cry on cue, was the perfect candidate. This recontextualizes the catfish origin story entirely. If Jenny is a handler, she knew Sumit was a catfish from day one. In fact, the catfishing angle was likely the hook the network used to sell the show. They needed a betrayal to start the engine. Jenny wasn't surprised when she found out who Sumit really was. She was acting. That explains why forgiveness came so easily. You don't need to forgive someone if you were never actually hurt because you read the script 3 weeks prior. The tears, the shock, the confessionals where she stares blankly into the distance, wondering how this happened. It is all a performance. And if it is a performance, Jenny Slatten deserves an Emmy because she has fooled millions of people for years. But the mask slips occasionally. There are moments in the unedited footage, rare glimpses where the grandmother persona fades and the sharp-eyed manager appears. Listen to the tone of her voice when she speaks to Sumit off camera or when she thinks the microphones are muted. It's less pleading lover and more stern supervisor. She issues commands. She tells him what to say. Tell them about your mother, Sumit. We need to talk about the divorce papers now, Sumit. She isn't asking. She is directing. This brings us to the most damning piece of the puzzle, the one thing that legal experts and immigration attorneys have been scratching their heads over for seasons: the visa. This is the smoking gun that threatens to dismantle the entire TLC narrative. We are told she is there on a tourist visa, bouncing out every 6 months, terrified of deportation. But does the timeline actually match the legal constraints of Indian immigration law? We will get into the nitty-gritty of the government clearance in a moment, but just ask yourself, how does a tourist with no income rent a house, set up utilities, and navigate a complex foreign bureaucracy without official help? The answer is simple. She isn't a tourist. Let's talk about the bureaucracy of the Indian government, because this is where the naive tourist narrative completely falls apart. Anyone who has ever applied for a visa to India knows that it is not a casual process. It is rigorous, it is detailed, and it is strictly enforced. The standard tourist visa for a U.S. citizen allows for a stay of up to 180 days per visit. That is the hard line. Yet, we are asked to believe that Jenny, a woman with no stated business purpose, managed to navigate this system seamlessly for years before the marriage license was ever signed. We watched her come and go, extending stays and navigating loopholes that seasoned immigration lawyers struggle with. How? The answer lies in the classification of her entry. We have received tips from sources familiar with international production logistics, suggesting that Jenny Slatten was never entered into the Indian immigration system as a tourist. Instead, the theory posits she is registered under a business or journalist visa category, specifically sponsored by the production company's local Indian subsidiary. This is a game changer. If she is there on a business visa, her job is to be there. The panic we see on screen about her visa expiring, that is a manufactured drama. It is a plot device designed to create a ticking clock for the audience. In reality, her status is likely secured by high-level corporate bonds and media credentials. She isn't a grandmother overstaying her welcome. She is a foreign consultant fulfilling a contract. This explains why, despite the threat of deportation looming over every season, she never actually faces legal consequences. The authorities aren't kicking her out because, on paper, she is a media employee working on an authorized film project. The network has high-level government clearance to shoot in these locations, and Jenny is part of that package deal. Now look at the power dynamic that this clearance creates. If Jenny is the one with the corporate backing and the media visa, she holds all the cards. This transitions us perfectly into the puppet master theory. We need to stop watching Jenny as a participant and start watching her as a floor manager. When you rewatch the seasons with this lens, the interactions between her and Sumit change from a romantic tragedy to a workplace dispute. Sumit doesn't look like a man torn between love and family. He looks like an exhausted employee dealing with a demanding supervisor. Re-examine the scenes where Jenny seems to be guiding the conversation. There is a very specific cadence to their arguments that mirrors the structure of a reality TV beat sheet. A beat sheet is what producers use to ensure a scene hits the necessary emotional highs and lows. Notice that whenever Sumit becomes too passive, whenever he tries to smooth things over or suggests a simple solution, Jenny rejects it immediately. She doesn't just reject it, she pivots to a topic guaranteed to enrage him or cause anxiety. This is a classic production technique called poking the bear. For instance, consider the endless saga of the marriage papers. There were multiple opportunities to resolve this quietly, but resolving it quietly doesn't make for good television. Watch Jenny's face during these discussions. She isn't listening to Sumit's answers. Her eyes are often darting slightly off camera, checking with the actual field producers, waiting for the nod to escalate. When she cries, look closely. Is she hyperventilating? Is she incoherent? No. She is articulate. She states the plot points clearly through the tears. I gave up everything for you, Sumit. I am alone in this country, Sumit. These aren't the ramblings of a heartbroken woman. They are sound bites. She is feeding the editors the lines they need for the trailer. She is crying effectively, signaling the start of the scene's climax. It is a controlled demolition of Sumit's peace of mind. There is a particularly telling pattern in how she handles Sumit's friends. When the friends come over, they often act as the voice of reason. They ask the hard questions. Watch Jenny during these interactions. She doesn't engage with them as peers. She engages with them as obstacles to the narrative. She shuts them down, not with logic, but with emotional outbursts that force the conversation back to her preferred track. It's a deflection tactic used by seasoned debaters and, you guessed it, showrunners. She controls the flow of information. She decides when the scene ends. Have you noticed that a scene rarely ends with Sumit walking away? It almost always ends with Jenny storming off or Jenny delivering the final ultimatum. That is because she is the one called cut. By storming off, she dictates the edit. She ensures that her emotion is the last thing the viewer sees, cementing her status as the victim and Sumit as the villain. Let's go deeper into the physical blocking of the scenes. Blocking is where actors stand in relation to the camera. Jenny rarely misses her mark. Even in the chaotic, cramped apartments they have lived in, she always manages to find the best light. She knows exactly how to angle her body so that even when she is hiding her face in her hands, the microphone still picks up her sobbing perfectly. A layperson covers the mic. A pro knows where the boom is. Compare this to Sumit, who frequently mumbles, turns his back to the camera, or steps into the shadows. Jenny often grabs his arm or pulls him back into the frame. On the surface, it looks like a lover's touch. Under the microscope of the handler theory, it is a producer physically moving a prop back into position. She is physically managing him to ensure the shot is usable. There is also the matter of the confessionals, those solo interview segments. Jenny's confessionals are masterclasses in storytelling. She speaks in the present tense, guiding the viewer through her internal monologue with a precision that suggests she has memorized a script. She recaps the stakes perfectly. If we don't get married by Friday, I have to leave. His mother is the only thing standing in our way. She reinforces the narrative arc that the show is trying to sell. Compare her lucid, plot-driving interviews with Sumit's. Sumit often seems confused, defensive, or contradictory. He stumbles. He looks guilty. Why? Because he is reacting to real-time pressure. Jenny isn't reacting. She is reciting. She knows the story because she helped build the storyboard in the production meeting that morning. We also have to address the language barrier weaponization. Jenny has lived in India for a significant amount of time. We are led to believe she has learned almost zero Hindi. In a relationship that spans a decade, immersion usually leads to at least a functional understanding of the partner's language. But Jenny remains blissfully ignorant, needing Sumit to translate everything. This is suspicious. Is it possible that she understands much more than she lets on? By pretending not to understand the language, she forces Sumit to translate everything for the camera. It is a brilliant production hack. If she understood Hindi, the conversations between Sumit and his parents would happen too fast, and the American audience would rely entirely on subtitles. By playing the ignorant American, she forces the drama to be spoken in English or translated slowly, making it accessible for the viewer. She isn't failing to learn, she is refusing to learn because her ignorance is a tool for the show's format. It keeps her in the center of the conflict. It forces everyone to speak through her. It centers the narrative on her confusion and victimization, rather than the nuance of the family dynamic. Now, consider the ring ceremony fiasco. The ring is the ultimate symbol of the reality TV contract. When Jenny demanded a ring, it wasn't about commitment. It was about visual storytelling. The ring is a prop that signifies a season finale. The pressure she put on Sumit to provide that ring was immense. It was relentless. And when she finally got it, the scene was framed perfectly. But look at Sumit's face when he gave it to her. There was no joy. There was relief. The relief of a man who has finally completed a task list. It looked less like a proposal and more like a ransom payment. The handler theory suggests that Jenny, as the covert producer, likely expensed that ring herself. She likely picked it out, paid for it with the production budget, and handed it to Sumit before the cameras rolled, telling him, "Give this to me when we sit on the bench, or we are filming for another 3 hours." This control extends to their living conditions. Fans have often criticized Sumit for the places he rents. They are dirty, they are small, they have monkeys on the roof, and Jenny complains about them constantly. But if Jenny has the money we suspect she has, and if the network is backing her, why stay in these places? Because the struggle is part of the aesthetic. A nice, clean, modern apartment in a gated community in Gurgaon doesn't scream sacrifice. It doesn't look like a dramatic struggle for love. It looks like a comfortable expat life. Jenny stays in the grime because the grime rates well. She allows the monkeys to steal the food because it's viral gold. She complains about the dirt to sell the narrative, but she signs the lease because she knows the set design needs to look gritty. She is curating misery for the audience's entertainment. We must also look at the timeline of the catfish reveal again in this light. The accepted story is that Jenny went to India, met Sumit's parents under false pretenses, and befriended his mother while pretending to be a tourist friend on Facebook. Then, years later, she returns. If Jenny is a handler, that first trip wasn't a romantic error. It was a scouting mission. It was the pilot episode that never aired. She went there to test the chemistry, to see if the family was volatile enough for television. She lived with them, studied them, and realized that the mother, Sadhna, was a goldmine of reality TV villainy. Jenny reported back to TLC, "We have a star in the mother. The son is malleable. I can work this." The entire franchise was built not on a romance, but on Jenny's initial assessment of the family's dramatic potential. She didn't fall in love with Sumit. She fell in love with the casting potential of his dysfunctional household. This brings us to the most chilling aspect of the puppet master theory, the isolation of Sumit. Over the seasons, we have seen Sumit become more and more isolated from his support system. His friends appear less frequently or are dismissed. His bond with his parents is severed. He is entirely dependent on Jenny. This is not just a toxic relationship, it is a controlled environment. By severing his ties to the outside world, Jenny, and by extension the production, becomes his entire reality. He has no one else to turn to. He cannot quit the show because he has burned his bridges with his community. He is trapped in the production bubble. And who governs that bubble? Jenny. She is his partner, his boss, his paycheck, and his jailer. The way she utilizes the threat of leaving is the ultimate whip. Every time Sumit shows a spine, every time he hesitates, Jenny packs a bag. "I'm going back to America," she screams. We watch it and think, "Oh no, they might break up." Sumit watches it and thinks, "If she leaves, the show ends, the money stops, and I am left with nothing but a ruined reputation." He isn't fighting for her heart, he is fighting for his livelihood. She knows this. She dangles her departure over his head like a guillotine. It is a negotiation tactic to get him to agree to the next plot point. Agree to the secret marriage, or I leave. Confront your mother, or I leave. It is coercion disguised as heartbreak. And what about the physical toll on Jenny? Critics will argue, why would she put herself through this stress if it's just a job? Look at her. Does she really look stressed? Or does she look energized by the drama? Some people thrive on chaos. In the industry, we call them fixers. They are the people who run into the burning building to get the shot. Jenny has that energy. She has the stamina of a war correspondent. She doesn't age like a woman under stress. She ages like a woman who is working hard and loving the game. Her exhaustion is often performed. Watch her in the candid social media posts that leak out between seasons. She looks happy. She looks vibrant. She looks like a woman who just wrapped a successful season and is enjoying her bonus check. The stark contrast between TV Jenny and real life Jenny is the final tell. The character is miserable. The actress is thriving. As we move toward understanding the true nature of their relationship, we have to look at the hostage situation. We have set the stage. Sumit is isolated, financially dependent, and managed by a woman who holds the keys to his visa and his income. But it goes deeper than that. There are rumors of a contract, not the standard NDA, but a personal contract between Jenny and Sumit that outlines his obligations in exchange for her financial support. This leads us to the darkest part of the theory. Sumit isn't avoiding marriage because he is scared of his mom. He is avoiding marriage because he is scared of Jenny. He is scared of what happens when the cameras stop rolling. The hostage situation isn't a metaphor. It is the reality of a man trapped in a performance he no longer wants to give, directed by a woman who will never let him be called cut. The hostage situation is the darkest chapter of the handler theory, and it completely inverts the dynamic we have been spoon-fed for seasons. For years, the audience has screamed at their televisions, begging Jenny to leave, wondering why Sumit won't just stand up to his parents. We have called him a coward. We have called him a liar. But what if he is actually a prisoner? When we strip away the romantic music and the carefully edited confessionals, we see a man who is displaying all the classic signs of someone under extreme duress, not from his family, but from the woman sleeping in the next room. The theory suggests that Sumit isn't avoiding marriage because he is scared of his mother's disapproval. He is stalling because he is terrified of what happens once the show is legally binding forever. He is terrified of Jenny. Let's look at the financial leverage. The narrative tells us Jenny is broke. But as we have established, the handler theory posits she is the highest paid person in that house, holding the production purse strings. In India, the exchange rate of the US dollar creates a massive power imbalance. If Jenny controls the access to the TLC paychecks, which are likely deposited into an American account that Sumit cannot access without her authorization, she effectively controls his ability to eat, to pay rent, and to function. We have seen Sumit quit his job to be with her. That wasn't a romantic gesture. That was a requirement of his employment on the show. By forcing him to quit his job, Jenny severed his only independent source of income. She made herself his sole provider. In the corporate world, this is called a hostile takeover. In a relationship, it is total domination. Now, consider the whispers of the ironclad contract. Reality TV contracts are notoriously draconian, but the handler theory suggests there is a secondary agreement between Jenny and Sumit. Insiders speculate that when the catfishing was first revealed, the network, via Jenny, offered Sumit a deal. He could face legal repercussions for fraud, or he could sign a contract to star in the show. He likely signed away his rights to his own image and story for a period of 5 to 7 years. This is why he cannot leave. It is why he always comes back after a fight. He isn't returning to Jenny's arms. He is returning to fulfill his contractual obligations to avoid a lawsuit that would bankrupt his entire extended family. This lens explains the suicide threat moments and the extreme panic attacks Sumit suffers. Remember the scenes where he is literally trembling, pleading with his parents, pleading with Jenny? That is the look of a man trapped between a rock and a hard place. On one side, he has the intense societal pressure of his Indian community and his parents' honor. On the other side, he has a powerful American media entity represented by a woman who will sue him into oblivion if he breaches his contract. Jenny's role in those moments is chilling. She is often seen calming him down but listens to her words. She reminds him of the plan. She keeps him focused on us. In handler terms, she is de-escalating the talent to ensure he doesn't have a mental break that would halt production. She needs him functional enough to film, but broken enough to remain compliant. The mother excuse, therefore, becomes a convenient fabrication for both of them. Jenny encourages the feud with Sadhna because it provides the perfect cover story. As long as they are fighting the mother, they don't have to address the reality of their business arrangement. Sadhna is the designated villain, a role she plays willingly, perhaps even unknowingly, fueling the drama that keeps the checks clearing. Jenny's insistence on living near the parents, on visiting them, on forcing confrontations, it is all calculated. A normal person would move to a different city to escape the abuse. A handler moves closer to the fire because that is where the best footage is. She is literally driving Sumit to the lion's den and locking the door behind him, then turning on the camera to ask him how he feels. We must also address the marriage itself. After seasons of stalling, they finally did it. They got married, the audience cheered, but look closely at that wedding. It was hasty. It was on a low budget. It was devoid of the massive cultural celebration that Sumit always dreamed of. Why did it happen then? Because the storyline had run its course. The will they, won't they arc was exhausted. Ratings were dipping. The network needed a payoff. The handler theory suggests that Jenny received a directive from corporate, marry him this season or the show is canceled. The marriage wasn't a union of souls, it was a season finale mandate. Sumit's resignation during the ceremony was palpable. He wasn't a groom, he was a man accepting his sentence. By marrying Jenny, he legally bound himself to her and the U.S. immigration narrative, opening up a new spin-off possibility, Sumit in America. The content machine must be fed, and Jenny made sure the main course was served on time. Even their social media presence supports this. Their Instagram accounts are perfectly synchronized. They post happy photos, they do coordinated dances, they present a united front. But notice the timing. The posts always ramp up right before a new season drops. They go silent when the contract allows. It is managed content. It is a brand partnership, not a relationship. Jenny, with her alleged background in media consulting, likely manages both accounts. She curates the image of the happy couple to protect the investment. If the audience stops believing in the love story, the show dies. So she maintains the illusion with the discipline of a PR firm. But the mask is slipping. As the years go on, Jenny's patience is wearing thin, not with Sumit, but with the role she has to play. We are seeing more flashes of the real Jenny, the woman who is sharp, commanding, and tired of the nonsense. She snaps at him with a speed that suggests she is done babying the talent. She rolls her eyes at the camera, breaking the fourth wall in a way that says, "Can you believe I have to deal with this amateur?" These aren't the reactions of a lover. They are the reactions of a supervisor who is ready to clock out. The ultimate proof, however, will be in the endgame. Watch what happens when the show is finally canceled. The handler theory predicts that once the cameras are gone for good, once the final check clears, Jenny will be gone within a month. There will be no slow drift apart. There will be a sudden family emergency in America, a flight booked, and a statement released by a publicist. Sumit will remain in India, likely picking up the pieces of his life, while Jenny returns to Palm Springs, her bank account full, her mission accomplished. She will retire comfortably, perhaps appearing on a Where Are They Now? Special to spin one last yarn about how the distance was just too much. But we will know the truth. We will know that she didn't leave because of the distance. She left because the contract expired. So I ask you to look at the screen with new eyes next week. Forget the sob story, forget the editing, watch the eyes. Look at Jenny Slatten not as the victim, but as the director. Watch how she moves, watch how she manipulates the space, watch how she triggers Sumit exactly when the scene gets dull. Is that the behavior of a naive grandmother lost in India? Or is that the precision of a veteran producer ensuring she gets the shot? Is Jenny the best actor on reality TV, or just a grandmother in love? The evidence is there, hiding in plain sight, buried under layers of tears and subtitles. Look at her eyes in the next episode. Is that love, or is that a producer checking the lighting? Is she gazing at her husband, or is she looking at the reflection in the lens to make sure her hair is right for the crying scene? If you think there is more to this story than TLC is telling us, if you think Jenny Slatten is actually running the show from the inside, I want you to comment the word handler down below right now. Let the algorithm know that we see the truth. Let's get this theory to the top so the network can't ignore us. And don't forget to like this video if you want more deep dives into the dark secrets of reality TV. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell because our next investigation is going to expose the financial records of the 90-day cast. And you will not believe who is actually making the millions. You have been watching the show. Now it's time to hack the truth. Thanks for watching, and remember,